Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Amy Utsman, and at 15 years old, when I stood in the kitchen looking at the counter of all of the pills I had gathered, looking around, seeing my dog, no one else home, and then taking all of those pills, I could never know at 15 where I would be at 20. Days later, I woke up in a hospital, and I stayed hospitalized for many, many months. And I got out of that hospital only to try again. And I remember being 20 and having another suicide attempt, not knowing at 20 where I might be at 30. And I got through some of those years, barely, feeling lost, confused, feeling like I just didn't fit in. And it wasn't like people around me weren't trying to help. People were telling me how much they loved me. Medication helped a little. Nurses, doctors, therapists, they all tried their best. And yet somehow inside, I felt empty, lost, and alone. I could not find my place in this world. I tried again, and this time I could barely breathe. A friend told me that I called them, and my breaths were so far apart, 911 barely made it. I lost days after that. My mom came. I had no idea what happened during those days. People tried, and never could I know at that time, why was I still here? I was trying. I knew somehow Amy Utsman was inside. I knew Amy was not her depression. I knew Amy was not that person whose moods could not stay stable. And yet I couldn't find a way out. I just did not know how. People tried to tell me, you are needed, you are loved, you're so smart, you're funny, you have a great sense of humor. Could not find myself. I could not hear it. The pain was deep, and I didn't know what that pain was. I was often asked, why? Why do you want to die so bad? I didn't know. Part of me still doesn't know. I was always a little extra sensitive, but that's okay. I did well in school. I had friends. I had a good, loving family. I was able to live part-time in the Caribbean. I had a great life. I was a swimmer. I was a competitive swimmer. I reached the top of my class in swimming as a teenager. And all of that changed, just like this. Why? I don't know. I really do not know. And then there was another serious attempt. And I remember my dad saying, I thought I was going to bring flowers to your grave. Whew. That hit home. Was it enough to keep me here? No. But inside, I still was trying to find myself. Then a funny thing happened. I was not doing well in college. I was away, and I actually managed to be living off campus with some roommates. And that was the first time really living alone, because I lived in a dorm before. And my roommates came home with a stack of TV dinners. And I thought, I'm not eating those. And I started to cook. I didn't know a thing about cooking. Good cooks in my family, not me. And in the midst of that, I discovered a passion. And I had a passion for cooking. And I was still in college for something else. And it just was not working. And I was trying so hard to not lose myself. And so I thought, I'm going to cook. And there was a restaurant opening nearby, and I went and I applied. I had zero skills, nothing, only a little bit that I did at home and I was so proud of. And I got that job, and it was a nightmare. Working from 10 a.m. to 2 a.m., no breaks, brutal, abusive environment. And somehow I loved it. Might sound crazy to some, but I absolutely loved the teamwork involved in cooking. I loved understanding, how does this all food come together? And I was working in a fine dining restaurant. Had no idea what an amazing opportunity I'd had. And I moved up the line, and I was catching on, doing really, really well. And then somehow I had a setback. And when I had this setback, I thought, it's not going to get me this time. And I moved back to Florida after that. I was living away. And I was working for one of my dad's companies, but the feeling of cooking never left. It just did not leave me. And it was one thing that I held on to. And I thought, there must be something here. And I was driving to work one day and I heard an ad on the radio for the weekend program for Johnson & Wales and for adults. That fit me. So I got to work, called Johnson & Wales, made an appointment, and the following week I was enrolled in their first weekend program in Miami. And I found a part of my place. And throughout that, my depression would come and go. And I remember being in my condo that I was so proud to be living alone in and paying the bills on my own. And I was about, I think, 24, 25. And I did not want to fail. I did not want to fail cooking. And I just remembered saying to myself, enough. Enough. I didn't know how I was going to beat this exactly. I'd been in therapy all of these years, had an amazing therapist by my side, always. I've been in and out of hospitals too many times to count. Sometimes having to have a friend pick me up because my family didn't know what to do anymore. And I remember that day, enough. And so I decided I'm going to do everything in my power to succeed at this. And I did. And if I had succeeded at dying by suicide those many attempts prior, I would not be where I am today. Nowhere near. Along that time, if I had not made it, I would have never achieved becoming a chef at a fine dining catering company. Average catering size of 1,000. I'm very proud of that. My kitchen, efficiently run, put together, putting out events for 5,000 people. That was something we were proud of because we did it and we did it well. And I made it beyond that. I made it to an assistant food service director. Little me, the one that wanted to die for so many years. And I was happy. I was very happy with cooking. I had my little life. Yes, I continued to have ups and downs, not so much with deep depression, but typical ups and downs that we all face. Bad relationships, had a few. But that's part of life. We can all go through bad relationships. We all have ups and downs. But this deep depression, this loss, this empty, that's something that we don't all have, thankfully. I believe that we all have them at times, but to have them for years or months on end, it's a feeling that is so hard to describe. And I want to say to all of you that my family tried. They really did. And it wasn't that they weren't trying. It wasn't that they didn't love me. I could not hear it. I could not hear it, and I could not feel it. And when I had that day in my condo by myself, thinking, I'm going to make it, enough of this, I decided to look at life in a different way. I decided to observe. Are people really including me because they have to, because they should, or because they want to? Because that was a big thing. We often feel that our families say to us, I love you, because they have to. They're family, right? We feel that they include us because we're family and they have to. But do they really? No, they don't. Because if they don't want to, that will be known. So I started observing. I'd go to work and, hey, how are you doing, Aim? That felt good. I didn't ask first. They asked me. I made note of that. I started looking at the things I was doing right versus everything I was doing wrong. And much to my surprise, I was actually doing a lot right. I made a promise to myself that I know that this depression may not go away, but if it didn't, that's okay. All I had to do was get through my responsibilities for that day by day. And then if I wanted to sleep till the next day, I could, as long as I fulfilled my responsibilities. That meant going to work. That meant taking care of my pets. That meant eating right, sleeping right. That was hard for me. Sleeping right, eating right, keeping a regular schedule, it was tough. It's not something I did well because depression played a role in that. But I was determined to beat it. And I was on medication, so I made a pact that I would stay on the medication. I would stay in therapy. I wouldn't skip any therapy sessions. I was also good at that. Sleep through it, too tired. Thankfully, I had a therapist that made me accountable. So I had to pay when I didn't go. And I was on a sliding scale because I didn't have any money. But we tallied it up and I paid every penny because that's what life was about, right? No longer was I going to let depression rule me and being an excuse and add to my failures, my perceived failures, because that's what they were, perceived failures. You see, I notice that when we get down or depressed, it's really amazing how the mind is attracted to everything that is negative. All of the bad stories on the news, and it just builds on itself. Anything negative, ooh, that person said something not good to me today. Ooh, that's what I remember. I don't remember the 10 positive things that happened that day, just the one bad. And even was it that bad? No, a person was having a moment. But it felt like the world crumbling down every time there was something negative said. And so I decided that, this is not going to work. This is completely out of balance by what I've been observing. People call me just to say hello. So how can it be crumbling down when I'm fulfilling my responsibilities? How is it that my mind is creating a story that's not real? How is that? Well, it's chemical is how that is. It happens. And so I thought, well, I need a way to figure this out because I have a lot of work to do. I'm working full-time in culinary school full-time and I still had homework. So it was a rigorous schedule to say the least. And so I noticed on those days where I felt extra down and I have to get up, and it's amazing, but when you feel depressed or depression is coming on, colors really are just not as bright. That's my experience. And everything just had a filter over it. I could not see the vibrancy of the world. And I thought there needs to be a way that I self-motivate myself. So I would play music. I would play music that uplifted me. I'd play that song we heard at the beginning there. That song I played over and over. It got me through some long nights, I have to say. And I would try to stay social. Now, you would think working in a cooking environment is social, but sometimes it frankly isn't, because we're all working so much that we don't have much time to say hello except for yelling at one another on the line. So, but I did those things. And eventually, it began to work. And the Amy that was buried under depression was no longer depression Amy, but Amy began to be Amy with side bouts of depression. And that just fueled my determination even more. And so I made it. And I was so proud of making it. I'm not one to celebrate my birthdays, really. Maybe more so now than I did in the past, for sure. But when I was about to hit 40, I said to my family, I'd like to do a 40th birthday because, and they knew why. They jumped on board in a way that was surprising to me. My brother hired a very well-known Caribbean band for our private event at his house. I had old friends and new friends. I had who is now my spouse by my side. My parents made a long journey in a very back way from Belize through Mexico to Florida with some friends of theirs and surprised me. And we partied until I believe we got home at 4:30 in the morning. And they all did that without even a question of why did you want a 40th birthday? Because they knew. They absolutely knew. And so today, just a couple of weeks ago, I turned 50. And I have to say that even though this is a very difficult year for many, and I had a little bit of a moment in July. July was not an easy month, but I am happy. I am proud, and I am lucky. And there are so many days I look around and I am thankful that my attempts did not succeed. And for any of you out there listening, thinking, you cannot be me, I am here to tell you, you 100% can. Because every individual on this planet has a purpose. And maybe we don't always figure it out, but just your presence is your purpose and your gift. We never ever know how we may touch or inspire another one just by being. We do not always know. And if you are ever thinking that you want to end it all, that you have had enough, that it has to be better on the other side, please call someone. Call the suicide hotline if you need to. I did in the past. Pause. Take a breath. That remember, you have some control over how you feel. Some. Play something that uplifts you. Think of something that might take you away in your mind, but not from this world. Reach out, because it may be hard for you to hear it now, but you matter. And I tell you, it was so hard for me for so many years. I thought I was a burden, only to later understand that my journey, even within my own family, taught people so much. I'm a survivor. People are in awe that I am resilient and I am here and I am thriving. And so I wanted to share this, what this was like, because it is a tough place to be. Depression is hard. That next step of feeling suicidal, it hurts. You physically feel ill. You are exhausted. You are drained. and you cannot get up some days. And yet, you are not a burden. It's a moment on your timeline. And yes, I fought for myself. And all I ask is that you try and fight for yourself too. So I worked in the cooking industry for 12 years. I loved it. Tough 12 years. I wouldn't change it for a thing. I learned so much. And in that last year, I learned something completely surprising about myself. And I learned that I was a medium. And that was very, very, very unexpected. And yet, that felt like a pull. And so I feel I have been blessed in so many ways because I was able to live my passion as a cook. Now I get to live my calling as a medium. I've been working professionally as a medium now for 12 years. I have a spouse by my side. We've been together 13 years. We live in a beautiful home and we are happy. Is life perfect? It never will be. To me, it's as perfect as it gets right now, even in the midst of chaos. And I can say that because I'm happy inside. I created coping mechanisms for me that work. And sometimes I need to rely on them. And I have an amazing spouse who understands. Do I get into those deep, dark depressions anymore? No, I don't. But I have a system in place in case I ever do. That's my story. And I hope you find some inspiration in there. But I will say this. Please, whatever coping mechanisms, let's try to be them healthier. And the reason I say healthier is because it does matter. If we use alcohol or drugs as a coping mechanism, it's a great escape for a while, but it actually brings you down. And the more we try to feed ourselves in a healthy way, and I don't mean that just with food, but I mean that with uplifting music, uplifting television, turn off the news, enjoy your animals, look outside. Even if you're alone, there's always something to see outside. Just look at it. Get outside of your own turmoil and your own mind. You have that power. That's what I did. So I thank you for listening so much.